My crush turned me down because I am too big. 6 months later, guess who's back to make it work after I lost half the weight? I just don't think we would work. You're great, Clara. Really. Just not my type. I still remember the exact words that came out of Elijah's mouth that night. He said it softly, almost kindly, like wrapping rejection in velvet could make it hurt less. But his eyes betrayed him. They flickered with guilt, and he couldn't hold my gaze for more than a heartbeat. I watched his jaw tighten, his fingers twitch against his coffee cup like he was waiting for the earth to swallow him up before I asked the question sitting heavy on my tongue. Not your type? I repeated, trying to smile, pretending I didn't already know what he meant. I was good at pretending. Years of practice. He shifted in his seat. You know what I mean, Clara. You're great. You really are. I just don't think it'd work between us. And there it was. The pause before the polite lie. The look that said everything he didn't have the courage to say out loud. I knew what "not my type" meant. It was code. The safe word people used when they wanted to sound kind while stabbing you in the chest. It meant you're too big. It meant I like you, but not enough to be seen with you. It meant you'd be perfect if you came in a smaller package. I wanted to say something clever. Something strong. But my throat burned. So instead, I just nodded. Got it. He smiled weakly, relief flickering across his face, like he was grateful I made it easy for him. I forced a laugh, said something about needing to get home, and left the cafe before the lump in my throat turned into tears. By the time I got home, the sky had opened up. Rain pelted the windows, matching the storm inside me. I curled up on my bed, still wearing the oversized sweater I thought made me look flattering, and cried into my pillow until it was soaked. I wasn't crying because I lost Elijah, I barely had him. I was crying because, once again, my body was the deal breaker. My laughter, my kindness, my ambitions, none of it mattered. I was too much of something and not enough of something else. That night, I made myself a promise. I was done chasing people who needed me to shrink before they could see my worth. But life has a funny sense of irony. Because that's exactly what I did next. Losing weight didn't start as revenge. It started as survival. After that night, I spiraled. I avoided mirrors. I avoided social events. Even my best friend, Sophie, couldn't pull me out of it. You can't let one guy make you feel like this, she'd said. But it wasn't just Elijah. It was every Elijah before him. Every comment. Every look. Every unspoken judgment that told me love had conditions. So one morning, I put on my old sneakers and walked into a gym nearest to my neighborhood. The air smelled like disinfectant and determination. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to feel something other than shame. At first, I hated it. The mirrors. The sweat. The sound of my breath echoing louder than my confidence. But I kept showing up. I started small, 15 minutes on the treadmill, some stretches, a few tentative weights. Then something shifted. I began to crave that ache in my muscles, that heartbeat that reminded me I was alive. Weeks turned into months. I traded my takeout dinners for home-cooked meals, my self-loathing for something gentler, self-respect. Every pound I lost wasn't just fat, it was pain, bitterness, doubt. It was Elijah's words, melting off me one run at a time. By month 6, I'd lost nearly half my body weight. But what I gained couldn't be measured. Confidence settled into me like sunlight after years of rain. I started walking taller, speaking louder, wearing clothes I used to hide from. Everything was going great for me and my newfound confidence until one Saturday afternoon, fate decided to test me. I was at my usual cafe, working on this side gig I got, when I looked up from my laptop and saw someone staring at me like he saw a ghost. It was him, Elijah. Same messy brown hair, same ocean blue eyes. But this time, it wasn't my heart that skipped, it was my stomach tightening in surprise. Clara, he said, almost in disbelief. I smiled politely. Hey, Elijah. He blinked, eyes scanning me up and down like he couldn't reconcile what he was seeing. Wow. You look amazing. I took a sip of my latte. Thanks. He hesitated before sitting down across from me, without asking. Same confidence, just repackaged as curiosity. How have you been? It's been, what, months? 6, I said flatly, closing my laptop. He nodded, smiling like he'd just stumbled into something unexpected. You look different. In a good way. Different how? I asked, letting him dig his own hole. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. You know what I mean. Oh, I did. Elijah suddenly became everywhere. Texts. Calls. Instagram reactions. He sent me memes, missed you messages, and random excuses to start conversations. Need a gym buddy? Remember that Thai place we liked? We should catch up soon. For a second, a tiny part of me, old Clara, wanted to believe it. Maybe he'd changed. Maybe he saw me now. But then, one night over dinner, his words betrayed him. I always knew you had potential, Clara, he said between bites. You just needed a push to get there. Potential. A push. Like I'd been a before photo. That was it. The illusion cracked. I realized he didn't see me, he saw the transformation. The validation. The version of me that fit into his world. I smiled, but inside, something cold settled. The kind of clarity that doesn't come easy. 2 days later, he texted again. Dinner tonight? My treat. I typed back, fingers steady. Sorry, I already have plans. A moment later. With who? I smiled, staring at the blinking cursor. Someone who liked me before I lost weight. Send. Then I turned off my phone, looked out at the rain-speckled skyline, and smiled, not out of spite, but peace. Elijah came back thinking I'd been waiting for him. But I wasn't the same girl he rejected. The old me might have begged for closure, the new me realized I'd already given it to myself. Sometimes, you don't lose weight to be wanted, you lose it to remember who never deserved you, no matter your size. After I told Elijah I had plans. And by plans, I meant a bubble bath, a face mask, and watching Grey's Anatomy reruns while eating strawberries in peace. No makeup, no small talk, no pretending. Just me, the glow of my laptop, and a quiet that didn't demand I shrink myself to fit in someone else's idea of beautiful. But apparently, Elijah didn't get the hint. The following morning, once I switched my phone on, I saw 3 messages and a voicemail. My phone started buzzing relentlessly on my nightstand, lighting up my room with his name over and over again. You're really not gonna talk to me? Clara, come on. Don't be like that. You know I always liked you. I just wasn't ready back then. I groaned and buried my face in my pillow. Wasn't ready? What was that even supposed to mean? Ready for what, liking someone who wore a size 18? The nerve. The audacity. I rolled over, unlocked my phone, and stared at the messages again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to type something sharp and satisfying. But I stopped myself. He didn't deserve my energy. Not anymore. So, I ignored him. For 2 full days. And just when I thought the universe might finally give me some peace, he showed up at the one place he had no business being. The gym. You've changed, but you're still you. I was halfway through my 3rd set of squats when I saw him in the mirror, leaning against the wall like he owned the place. Same messy brown hair. Same self-assured smirk. Only this time, instead of making my heart race, it just made me tired. He waited until I racked the bar and wiped my forehead before walking over, casual as ever. Hey, stranger. I straightened up, grabbing my towel, trying to steady my breathing. Elijah. What are you doing here? He shrugged, pretending this was all spontaneous. I was nearby. Thought I'd check out the place you're always posting about. Figured maybe you could show me around. I raised an eyebrow. You? At a gym? He grinned. Guess that's changing. You kinda inspired me. I let out a small laugh, more disbelief than amusement. Inspired you? Yeah, he said earnestly, stepping closer. Seeing how far you've come, it's amazing, Clara. You've really transformed. There it was again. Transformed. That word that people used when they wanted to compliment me but couldn't admit they only started respecting me after I looked different. Thanks, I said flatly, tossing my towel over my shoulder. But I did it for me, not for anyone else. He nodded, pretending to understand, but the way his eyes lingered on me betrayed him. Still, he said, lowering his voice, I can't lie, it made me realize what I missed out on. I froze. Elijah. He cut me off, his tone softening. No, listen. I messed up. I was shallow, okay? I'll admit it. But people can change, right? He took a step closer, his cologne faintly familiar. I think we could have something real now. You and me. I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. The same man who once said I wasn't his type, now acting like the hero in a redemption arc I never signed up for. You think losing weight made me available to you again? I asked quietly. He blinked, thrown off. No. It's not like that, I swear. When I see you now, it's different. You carry yourself different. You look incredible. I let out a humorless laugh. Elijah, I said, cutting him off, you're describing my body, not my soul. He frowned, like I was speaking another language. You're twisting this. No, I said, my tone calm but sharp. I'm just finally hearing what you're really saying. He sighed dramatically, rubbing his neck. You've changed, he muttered, as if it were an accusation. Yeah, I said quietly. That's the point. Over the next few days, Elijah doubled down. He texted every morning, hope you slept well. He sent gym selfies, captioned on my own fitness journey. He even started showing up at my favorite cafe, claiming coincidence every single time. Seattle's gray drizzle became his background. Everywhere I went, there he was, like persistence could replace sincerity. One afternoon, after I ignored yet another one of his texts, he finally snapped. Why are you being like this, Clara? I'm trying here. I rolled my eyes and replied, trying what? His answer came fast. To make things right. You know how hard it is for me to admit I was wrong. And now you're punishing me for it? That word, punishing, made me pause. Like my boundaries were somehow a weapon. He kept going. You're acting like I'm some villain because I didn't see it before. But look at you now, you're gorgeous, confident, everything I always hoped you'd be. Why are you shutting me out when I finally want you? I stared at my phone for a long time before typing back. Because I was already all of those things before. You just couldn't see it. He didn't reply for hours. When he finally did, it was short. Defensive. You're cold now, Clara. Success changed you. I laughed so loud my neighbor's cat flinched. Success changed me? The man who couldn't stand next to me at a party without scanning the room for someone thinner was now mad because I wasn't flattered by his attention. The irony was rich and exhausting. A week later, on a damp Thursday afternoon, the skies hung low and moody. I was leaving the same cafe where we'd first bumped into each other when I heard someone call my name. Clara. Wait up. I turned. Elijah jogged across the street, rain dotting his hoodie, his breath visible in the cold air. He stopped in front of me, panting slightly. Please. Can we talk for 5 minutes? I crossed my arms. 5 minutes. That's it. He nodded quickly, grateful for the opening. Look, I know I hurt you. And I hate myself for it. But I thought maybe you could give me another chance. I tilted my head, studying him. Why? He blinked. Because I care about you. I really do. And maybe I was scared before. But I'm not anymore. I stayed silent. He looked sincere. Maybe he even meant it. But sincerity doesn't erase history. It doesn't undo the months of feeling like I had to earn my worth. I'm glad you've had your revelation, I said softly. But I'm not your redemption story, Elijah. I'm not here to make you feel better about who you used to be. His jaw tightened. So that's it? You're just gonna pretend we don't have a connection? I let out a quiet sigh. Elijah, we never had one. You had conditions. You wanted me smaller before you could love me. I wanted someone who'd love me as I was. We were never the same. He stared at me for a long time, eyes searching, maybe hoping to find the girl who once would have said yes. But she was gone. I don't even know who you are anymore, he muttered. I smiled. That's okay. I do. And then I turned and walked away. As I walked through the misty drizzle, I passed my reflection in a shop window. My hair frizzed in the damp air, my cheeks were flushed from the cold, but I looked alive. For the first time in a long time, I didn't see a before or an after. I just saw me. Light. Unburdened. Not because of the weight I'd lost, but because I'd finally dropped something heavier, his approval. That kind of freedom. It felt better than any gym victory ever could. Sometimes, the hardest weight to lose isn't on your body, it's the one tied to someone else's idea of your worth. It had been nearly a month since I'd last seen Ethan outside that cafe. A peaceful, beautiful month. No surprise texts. No accidental meetups. No guilt trips disguised as affection. Just me, my routine, my quiet. I didn't realize how much noise he'd taken up in my life until the silence started to feel like music. I woke up without scanning my notifications. I walked past places we used to meet without feeling that tight pull in my chest. For the first time in years, my peace wasn't something I had to chase, it just was. Until one Friday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie, my best friend. Also known as Elijah's cousin. Hey, can we talk for a sec? My heart skipped. Sophie and I had been friends since freshman year, back when we were just two broke college girls splitting takeout and complaining about exams. She'd seen me through everything, the crying, the heartbreak, the rejection. She was the one who told me, gently but truthfully, if he can't love you now, don't wait until he decides you're convenient. So I already knew what this was about before she even said it. Let me guess. Elijah? I asked. Yeah, she replied. He came over last night. Told me everything. How he blew it with you. How you're avoiding him. He even said he's trying to make amends. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over my screen, torn between annoyance and exhaustion. It figured that Elijah would try to turn this into a redemption arc, his own little comeback story where I was supposed to hand out forgiveness like a prize. And you believe him? I asked again. A pause. Then. No. I believe you, she replied. I blinked. For a moment, I couldn't type. The relief that came from those 4 words hit deeper than I expected. People always talk about closure, but sometimes, it's not the apology that heals you, it's someone finally saying you were right to walk away. Before I could respond, another message came through. He begged me to talk to you for him. Said you're being cold and that he deserves a second chance. But honestly, Clara? I told him the truth. Which is, I asked. That he's not entitled to you now just because you became the version of yourself he can stomach. I told him if he couldn't love you at your heaviest, he doesn't deserve to love you at your strongest. I just sat there staring at the screen, my throat tightening, the words burning into me in the best way possible. There was a time when I would have folded at the first sign of his remorse. When the idea of him wanting me now would have felt like victory. But Sophie's words hit different. They weren't cruel, they were clarity. He looked so lost, but I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. Because for once, I got to see you win the story he never believed you could rewrite. A tear rolled down my cheek. Not the sad kind, the finally heard kind. The kind that comes when someone else sees your worth and names it out loud. You really said that to him? Every word. And you should have seen his face when I told him how proud I was that you didn't cave. He looked like someone just took away his favorite excuse. I laughed through the tears, shaking my head, imagining Elijah pacing in her living room, trying to convince her he'd changed. He probably expected her to soften me up, to play messenger for his guilt. Instead, she became my voice when I didn't even know I still needed one. Thank you, sophomore. Don't thank me. Thank you for setting the standard. I'm just applauding from the sidelines. I stared at that last message for a long time, letting it sink in. That night, as I lay in bed, the city outside my window hummed, a low, distant heartbeat of cars and rain. I replayed everything, how Elijah once dismissed me, how I rebuilt myself piece by piece, and how, in the end, the validation I craved didn't come from his apology. It came from my own peace. And maybe from Sophie's final message. You didn't lose weight to fit his world, Clara. You lost what was weighing you down, him included. I smiled into the dark, the kind of smile that feels earned, not borrowed. For the first time in years, I wasn't defined by who I wanted to be loved by, but by who I had become without needing that love at all. Elijah might have gone to Sophie hoping she'd convince me to forgive him. Instead, she reminded me why I never should. And for once, I didn't feel bitter. Just free. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving to yourself that you never needed them to be right. It was just beginning to thaw. The air still carried that faint winter bite, but the cherry blossoms were already teasing pink along the streets, soft and defiant against the gray. I loved that about this city, how beauty still found a way to bloom, even when the world looked cold and tired. I pulled my jacket tighter and walked along the waterfront, the skyline glittering across the bay like a memory I finally made peace with. It had been yet another 6 months since the last time Elijah tried to reach out. 6 months since Sophie sent the text that closed the last chapter of that story I used to live in. And 6 months since I started living in my own. Every part of my life looked different now, not because I'd changed to impress anyone, but because I'd learned how to take up space on my own terms. My morning started early now. I ran before sunrise, headphones in, breath clouding in the cold, not because I was chasing thinness, but because I loved feeling alive in my own body. The gym wasn't punishment anymore. It was power. It was routine, rhythm, release. I'd watch the city wake through fogged windows and think, this is mine now. My evenings were quiet, candles, a little jazz, maybe a good book or a call with Sophie, who'd somehow turned into my therapist, cheerleader, and chaos partner all in one. And work? Let's just say the girl who used to hesitate to take up space was now running a social media campaign for one of Seattle's biggest wellness startups. I didn't plan it that way, I just started sharing pieces of my journey online. My words about self-worth and letting go started resonating, and before I knew it, people wanted to hear me. To learn from me. The irony still made me laugh sometimes. I'd spent years shrinking myself to be chosen, only to find my power in being seen. One evening in early March, I was sitting at a small cafe near Pike Place, the same spot, funny enough, where Elijah had first turned me down almost a year ago. The same worn tables, the same smell of espresso and rain-soaked pavement. But the girl sitting here now wasn't waiting for him. I was sipping coffee and working on a draft for a campaign about redefining enoughness. The word made me smile. Enoughness. That used to feel like something I had to earn. Now it was just the air I breathed. My phone buzzed. Sophie, of course. Guess who I ran into at the farmer's market today? I didn't need to guess. I felt the faintest flicker of curiosity, but it passed almost instantly. Let me guess. Tall, familiar, and suddenly humble? Ding ding. He said hi. Looked like he wanted to bring you up but chickened out. Good. Let him choke on that silence. You're evil. I love it. I laughed quietly to myself, shaking my head. A year ago, a text like that would have sent my heart racing, my thoughts spiraling. Now it just didn't matter. The power was gone. The story had ended and I was the one who wrote the final line. Sometimes I still thought about him. Not in a longing way, but in that detached, almost nostalgic way you think about the person you used to be. He was a chapter, messy, painful, necessary. The version of me that loved him was still somewhere inside, but she wasn't steering anymore. If I saw him today, I think I'd thank him. Not for the pain, but for the lesson. For showing me that rejection isn't always loss, sometimes it's direction. Because if he hadn't turned me down, I might have never turned inward. I might have never rebuilt myself from the inside out. I looked out the cafe window, at the reflection of the city lights dancing on the wet pavement. For a second, I caught my own reflection in the glass, not thinner, not smaller, just lighter. The kind of light that comes from letting go. That's when a voice broke through my thoughts. Excuse me, are you Clara? Clara Ellis? I looked up. A tall man stood a few feet away, warm smile, familiar face. It took me a second before I realized, he was from the gym. We'd talked once or twice near the treadmill section, casual stuff. Yeah, I said, smiling politely. Hey, Jordan, right? He grinned. You remember. I've been following some of your posts online, that piece you wrote about self-worth? My sister shared it. She said it made her cry. My chest softened. That means a lot, thank you. He shrugged, a little shy. You make it sound simple, you know? This whole self-acceptance thing. I'm still working on it. Aren't we all? I said. We talked for a while, about music, running routes, the absurd price of coffee in Seattle, and for once, I wasn't performing or protecting. I was just being. When he asked if I wanted to grab a smoothie after my run sometime, I said yes. Not because I needed it to turn into anything. But because I wanted to say yes to life again. That night, walking home beneath the string lights of Pike Place, I thought about the irony of it all. Elijah had once made me feel too much, too big, too emotional, too eager. Now, I'd built a life where too much was exactly what made it beautiful. Sophie called later that night, just to check in. So. Jordan, huh? How do you already know? Girl, I have eyes everywhere. Also, your Instagram stories aren't subtle. It's not a thing. He's just nice. Clara, that's the thing. Nice doesn't mean boring anymore. It means safe. She was right. For the first time in forever, I wasn't chasing chaos disguised as passion. I wasn't waiting for someone to see my worth. I was simply walking beside people who already did. Months later, I'd find myself standing in front of a room full of women at a wellness event, telling my story out loud for the first time, the rejection, the healing, the power of walking away. My voice trembled a little, but I didn't hide it. I told them how losing half the weight wasn't what changed my life, losing the need to be chosen did. And when I finished, when the applause rose around me, I caught Sophie's eye in the crowd, tears shining behind her smile. She mouthed, "You did it." And I realized, I had. I didn't just move on. I'd moved up. Into a life that finally felt like mine. That night, as the city lights shimmered across the bay, I sat by my window and reread the message Sophie had sent months ago, the one that started my real ending. You didn't lose weight to fit his world, Clara. You lost what was weighing you down, him included. Only now, I understood something deeper. It wasn't just him I'd let go of. It was every version of myself that thought I needed someone else's approval to be enough. I smiled to myself, that quiet, certain kind of smile that doesn't need witnesses. Because sometimes, healing doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes, it's just sitting alone in your apartment, tea in hand, heart steady, realizing you're finally at peace. And that, maybe, is the real glow up. The end. Please subscribe to my channel to see more of my stories. Thanks.